this video, we're going to focus on ordinary share capital, more specifically an example on ordinary share capital. In the previous video, we looked at terminology and I explained some of the concepts in a more simpler way. We looked at ASP and calculating the ASP, and we also did the ordinary share capital T account and the note. So here we're just going to focus on doing an example. Please go watch that video if you haven't already. So in this video, as I said, we're going to work on grade 12 syllabus and the examples or questions that can be asked for your prelims, finals, and maybe even June. So we're going to look at ASP and calculating ASP. It's a very important step if you're going to be doing ordinary share capital or anything working with ordinary shares. You're going to be looking at working forwards, which is what is going to be tested for term 1. We're going to look at working backwards, which is what is mostly tested that I've seen, calculating buyback, calculating additional shares, and calculating the retained income for buyback. So the retained income is mostly used for the retained income note, but I thought we'd just cover it for the buyback because it is part of the ordinary share capital and all of that. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, we have our information and I have the format below just in case you're unfamiliar with the format. So issued at the beginning of the year, we know if it's issued at the beginning of the year, it was issued previously, and now we have to put it right at the top. It's what our opening balance will be. So it's 250 shares at 2 Rand on the 1st of January. Let's see. So if it's 250,000 shares at 2 Rand, that means my total Rand amount is going to be 500,000. So I'm just going to write it here for now. We will fill it in just now. Authorized number of shares. If you remember from the previous video, I said it's the maximum amount of shares that a company can sell. So this company can only sell 1 million shares. So they have to make sure they stay underneath that 1 million shares. Issued shares at the end of the year. So if they say end of the year, it means it's your end balance. Don't get confused because you're saying issued shares and think that it's issued during the year. End of the year, end balance. That's it. Unless they say issued shares at some time of the year and then they say end balance, just be very careful of their wording. Okay, and they said it's 550,000 shares. We would probably have to calculate the price if they haven't given us the price. The additional shares issued on the 1st of June 2025. There we go. Additional shares. That means we sold shares during the year. 400,000 at 1.50, and that would be 600,000 Rand. Okay, these are the Rand amounts. Buyback of shares on the 1st of October, 100,000 at 5 Rand. Keep in mind, if you remember from the previous video, I said this is your bank amount. So when we are working with buyback, we debit, and we credit. So we debit ordinary share capital, debit retained income, and credit bank. This is my bank amount. Unless they specifically say that this buyback is for ordinary share, we always assume it's the bank amount because it's our total. That is what we paid in total. I still need to find the difference. I need to find the ASP and I need to find the total. They've given me the total already, so the total that I've paid is 500,000. All right, but is that 500,000 going to go into my ordinary share capital note? No, we need to find the ASP. All right, let's start filling it in. So ordinary number of shares. So that'll be 1 million ordinary shares. And keep in mind, there is no rand amount for this in the memorandum of incorporation. We're only going to look at the issued shares and their rand amount. So at the beginning of the year, we had 250,000 shares issued at the beginning of the year at 2 Rand per share. So that would be 500,000. Shares issued during the year, there's it over here. It's our additional shares, so it's going to be 600,000. And it was issued at 1 Rand 50 per share, and it was 400,000. Okay, shares bought back and repurchased. So we bought back 100,000. Keep in mind, buyback, it's in brackets because it's on the debit side of our ordinary share capital account. It's going to decrease. Okay, we don't know the per share price and we cannot put this in because we need to find this and it's going to be less than this amount. How do we calculate that? We have to look at our ASP. Okay, so what do we have so far for this year? Okay, so it's always let's look at the formula first. So total rand amount over the number of shares. So it's going to be 500 plus 600,000 all over 250,000 plus 400,000. Okay, and that is going to be 1.69 rands per share. So we're going to put over here 1.69 rands per share. So 100,000 times 1.69 is 169,000, and always in brackets. Okay, right, so now that we got that, we can calculate at the end of the year. As I said in the previous video, if you're working like this, most of the time they don't want you to put this over here. It's not important, but if your teacher wants you to do it, 100% do it, but most of the papers, they don't want you to do it. Great, so this will be 650 minus 100,000, which would give me 550,000, and on this side, it would be 931,000. And there we go. That is how you do the ordinary share capital. So far, what did we just do? To the ASP, we worked forwards. Let's calculate the retained income since we are already here. So we're going to say 500,000, which is our bank amount, our total amount, minus our ASP amount, which is 169,000. And that is going to give us what will go inside our retained income. Okay, so you will notice that it is a little bit bigger than what your exercises will do. This is just for me to show you the difference. So this is the difference. This is the profit the investor probably made. We have to record our buyback at the ASP for fair representation of our books. If we don't do that, it is wrong, basically. Right, so this is our total This is our ASP, so this is our ordinary share capital, this is our bank, which is our total, and this is our retained income, which is the difference. Okay, so if I had to show it in my general ledger over here, okay, I'm just going to rewrite it just because of space so you can see it properly. So ordinary share capital, retained income, and bank. This was 500,000, so we paid 500,000, came out from our bank account, credit CPJ, right? Then debit, retained income, it was 331,000. This is our difference between our ordinary share capital, which is 169,000. Okay, ASP, difference, and total. Just keep that in mind. This is how you do the general journal entry. Okay, I've just cleared up the space so that we could continue. Okay, so this is 931,000, and I've put it here for the issued shares at the end of the year. Let's work backwards now. Let's say, for instance, we do not have the beginning of the year. We do not have the share price, which is the 2 Rand. Let's say we don't have that 2 Rand, so we can't calculate that total Rand amount. Now, this messes up a lot of things. Why? Because now we cannot calculate our ASP, which is for the buyback, and now we cannot calculate the beginning as well. Remember, for buyback, we need to calculate ASP, which is for beginning, plus the additional, which is over here, there's it over there. Total rands of the beginning and additional divided by the number of shares for both the beginning and additional. Now, if I don't have the beginning, this thing gets messed up. So I cannot just use additional shares. It would not work out. I would need both of them. So what we have to do is work backwards. But for now, let's put all of our information into the table. So we do have 250,000 shares at the beginning of the year at some price that they have not told me. Shares issued during the year at some price, so they have told me it is 400,000 at 150, and that is 600,000. Okay, I don't need to put the rand over there. Then our buyback, they have told me it's 100,000. They haven't told me the ASP, they only told me the bank total. I need to calculate that ASP, but as I said, we have that problem. We just have to wait a bit, and we can't do anything there. For our end of the year, 550,000. Even if you do it straight down, you would get 550,000, but they gave it for us, so let's use that. And we calculated at 931,000. So they've given us the 931,000. How do I go from there? I don't have this, 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 and this. Very difficult. So we have to look at the ASP again. Another way to calculate the ASP, same thing, total number of rands over the number of shares. Okay, I'm just making that neater. That did not come out neater. It's fine. So 931,000 all over 550,000. You'll see if you put that into your calculator, you get the exact same thing, 1.69. And that's how we know that we are right. So that's 1.69. And that's how we got from there to there. Use the same ASP, 1.69. So 100,000 times 1.69, 169,000. And now we'll be able to calculate the beginning. But how? Okay, so same thing with my tuition kids, my students. They will work backwards, but they forget this buyback. Something happens, right? So I'm just going to take this out for now. So if we are working forwards, what did we do? We said beginning plus the additional shares minus the buyback will give us the end. Now if I have the end, it's going to be n minus the additional plus the buyback is equal to the beginning. What my kids tend to do, what the students tend to do, is that they will minus the additional and then minus the buyback. You will get the wrong answer, or they'll add both of them or something like that, or they mix it up. Please don't make the same mistake. It will be opposite signs. Right, so if you had to do this from there, you would see that you would get 500,000, and from there you'll be able to calculate that share price at 2 Rand. Okay, so you're going to say 931,000 minus 600,000 plus 169,000, which will give us 500,000, and that's what you put into your calculator. Great. Okay, so we have now just worked backwards. Let's look at calculating the buyback. So what could happen is they give you everything, So let's use the same format. They give you everything. What do you do in this case? I always recommend that if they give you everything, work like how you'd work forwards. So use the ASP from this one. Work like you want to work forwards. Okay, don't always use the end just because the buyback is not there. Always follow the steps. So always try to work forwards. If you can't work forwards, then work backwards. Okay, great. So if we had to do that, it would be the same thing again. It would be 500 plus 600 all over 250 plus 400, and that would give us 1.69. This is 1.69. They would have to give you the number of shares, and if they don't, you can work it out. So this is going to be 650,000. So I said beginning plus additional, it gave me 650,000. Now if my end is 550,000, it means we bought back something, and that difference is 100,000. So that's what is nice about this format, is that if you don't have something, especially with the number of shares, you can just calculate it. Same thing with the total rands. Think about it like your fixed asset note. Same thing, you can work backwards to find an answer, right? Okay, and always remember this is a total line, just so that you know. Okay, and then if I wanted to work out the difference, so let's say I didn't want to work out the ASP. You didn't have to work out the ASP. You could have done this and found the difference. So you'd say 931,000 minus 600,000 minus 500,000. Why? So it's going to be your end minus your beginning minus your additional is equal to your buyback. Okay, only the buyback is minus, and that's why this one is the most trickiest one. Is because of this minus from the buyback. It changes to a plus. Over here, they are both the same. We know they are both positive values, and that would equal to 169,000. Alright, okay, so now we have calculated the buyback. Now let's say, for instance, they don't give you the additional shares. So if they don't give you the additional shares, same problem. So for the ASP in the first one, what did we do? We had to say beginning plus the additional, then to get our ASP. But now if we don't have additional, which is what I've seen in most of the papers, is that they do not give the additional and they do not give the buyback. So what you'd have to do, same thing for working backwards. You would say 931,000 divided by 550,000. Which would give us the 1.69, and you would go from there exactly like how we have been doing. Only problem that you might have over here is that when you're calculating, don't forget you're going to have to plus the buyback now because we are working backwards in order to get that additional. Okay, over here, what would you have to do? 550,000 plus 100,000 minus 250,000 gives us 400,000. Okay, shares issued at the year for a certain price. We don't know that price as yet. Work it out over here. So it's going to be 931 plus 169 minus 500 will give us that 600,000. Now, if you are not getting a good answer, after you do a couple exercises, you'll understand what a good answer is, what looks a little bit off. Try it out again. You probably just messed up the signs. And then you say 600,000 divided by 400,000, 1.5 per share. Okay, so in this video, we have looked at all the possible ways they can test ordinary share capital note. So we looked at the ASP, working forwards, working backwards, calculating buyback, calculating additional shares, calculating retained income. So it might have seemed a little bit easier because we did the working forwards method first. But when it comes to working backwards and you're looking at a completely new section, just remember the way that I taught you. Always try to work forwards, but if you can see that you're working backwards, use the end balance to calculate your ASP and work from there. And always remember your buyback, it's split 3 different ways. So if they say that they purchase it, just remember that it's probably bank. They would say they spent a total amount on the buyback of shares. That means that it's bank. Just be careful of the diction that they use in tests and exams. That's just how they catch you out. Okay, I really hope this video has helped you. I do have a free 1-page summary on companies that should be attached below in one of the YouTube links, and I do have more in-depth notes attached as well. If you would like to book tuition lessons with me, there is a form there as well. I really hope this video has helped you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.